Welcome, folks. Um, just to make sure that everyone is in the right place and you're not in the wrong room, you are in Case Studies and Advocacy, Winning Approaches for Successful Campaigns. I'm sure some of you already saw the workshop description, but we are essentially going to be speaking with three of our fantastic community advocates and partners. And yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit about some case studies and how you might find yourself successful in mounting an advocacy campaign. But before we get there, I just wanted to do a little bit of a land acknowledgement, and I just want to encourage others to do your own sort of land acknowledgement. So I'm pasting in the chat here just a little interesting tool that you can use if you already don't know who some folks, the tribes are in your land, then go ahead and take a look at this link. I will admit it's not 100% accurate all the time, particularly since it's a Canadian project, but yeah, it gives you a pretty decent idea about who the tribes are in your area. My name is Timothy Bell. I am a program officer with the Rose Foundation. And I live on the ancestral lands of the Duwamish people and the Coast Salish people. I am joined by my three panelists, who I'm going to just kick it over to them really quickly to just do a quick intro of themselves. But I'm joined by Gustavo, Ralph, and Sandra. Sandra, why don't you lead us off and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Sandra Schubert. I'm the Executive Director of Tuliomi. We do work throughout the northern intercoastal ranges and western Sacramento Valley in California. And our work is in the lands of the Yuki, the Nomlaki, the Patwin, Pomo, Hutchinum, Wapo, and Miwok Native Americans in the area. And I'm very honored to be here participating in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. How about you, Ralph?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ralph Silberstein. I'm the president of Community Environmental Advocates Foundation, or CEA Foundation, as we like to be called. And in general, as an organization, we review and respond to development projects in Nevada County and work to have a community that's walkable, sustainable, looks for environmental protections and respectful of the community. So that's basically it. Thanks.
Thank you. And how about you, Gustavo?
Yeah, hi everybody. Gustavo Aguirre, with the Center on Race, Poverty, and Environment, and obviously an environmental justice organizations. We are been in existence for over 35 years. I'm the assistant director at CRPE, and we are based on Yoko's land in Delano, California.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So in this session, we are going to explore strategies to advance local advocacy campaigns. We are going to be building relationships, or we're going to be examining relationships rather, with city, county, and agency decision makers. We're going to talk about organizing community support. We're going to talk about working with coalitions and networks, as well as overcoming institutional resistance. If you would like to talk about more than that, I encourage you at the moment to hold on to those thoughts, and as they come up, share them with us in the chat. Aurora is going to be helping us navigate our chat questions. Yes, use the chat as a sort of impromptu parking lot, and we will pull our questions from there as needed. All right. Without further ado, I just want to kick it off. I want to kick it off before we get to sort of a Q&A kind of panel discussion, I want to get to just knowing a little bit more about our panelists and about their work, and in particular about the sort of case study nature of what we can learn from their work. So I am going to turn it over to our panelists to tell us a little bit about what they've done, what their successes and what their struggles have looked like in the past. And so without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Ralph to start us off. And then we can go Ralph, Sandra, and then Gustavo.
I'm sorry. Am I up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about your sort of case study, as it were.
So thank you. Today I'm talking about the proposed reopening of the Idaho Maryland mine in Grass Valley. This project has been our focus for about 4 years. After operating in the 1860s, the Idaho Maryland mine shut down in 1956, and the 72 miles of underground workings were allowed to reflood. The current project, as proposed, consists of 2 surface sites, a 56-acre Centennial site, which is about a mile from the center of town and covered with old mine tailings, and a 119-acre Brunswick site a little further out. Plus, there's 2,585 acres of subsurface mineral rights, a huge area underneath many residences in Grass Valley. This was a 3rd attempt at reopening this mine in recent history. In 1996, a company called Empire Gold got a 5-year use permit to dewater and explore the mine, but they failed to raise enough funds to execute their plans. Then in around 2006, M Gold Mining applied to open a full ore processing facility at the Centennial site. However, they failed to get enough funding to get through the EIR process. So finally, that brings us to today. The current owner is Rise Gold Corporation, and they picked up the property in 2017. And in 2019, they submitted an application for an 80-year use permit. That's 80 years. The processing facilities would cover 120,000 square feet with industrial buildings at the Brunswick site, surrounded by residential areas. And the proposal also included 2 massive mine waste piles, 1 pile covering 31 acres on the south end of the Brunswick site to 90 feet high, adjacent to the residences, and the other pile covering 44 acres on the Centennial site. So there are many issues with the project, including threats to residential wells and groundwater, air pollution, aesthetics, haul truck traffic, asbestos, dust, noise, greenhouse gases, and more. So strategically, the way I like to think about it, our approach fell roughly into 2 realms, a technical analysis of the project and a grassroots campaign. As many of you know, probably, in some cases, just a good analysis of the environmental impacts can kill a project during the EIR process. For example, back in 2008, we formed a group to address the mine on that attempt, and we had limited resources. The mine owners were several years ahead of us in the PR campaign and seemed to have a lot of support by the city and businesses, and so we had an uphill battle. However, the project's draft EIR was deemed inadequate, and they had to recirculate the draft. And so we got lucky because the applicant ran out of money. In this current attempt, the applicant, Rise Gold, built on prior works and produced more complete studies, and they attempted to mitigate some of the impacts, which formed a bigger challenge for us. We realized that we needed to develop both an extensive technical analysis and also a major outreach campaign. Basically, it's kind of like an arms race each time around. On the technical side, we formed a team of volunteers, and we're very fortunate here. We have a lot of expertise in our community with people who are expert in geology or hydrology, air quality, biology, and planning. And our coalition partners were a great resource. Also, for the EIR, we funded a legal analysis and some expert consultants. So the results were, we found a lot of defects in the application documents and the draft EIR, and this provided a lot of solid information for the public campaign. And it helped establish us as a reliable information source, which helped build our credibility. For the major public outreach campaign, well, we have been operating as an all-volunteer organization, and we're really fortunate to have an experienced working board, including a former planner with decades of experience and so forth. But for this campaign, we hired a part-time consultant with extensive grassroots experience, and we formed a communications team, and we really ramped up on the social media, which was a new challenge for us. There was quite a learning curve there. Worth noting, though, we got the support of an amazing volunteer with marketing experience who was a huge help in the social media and our Mind Watch campaign. So, and she actually maintained the Mind Watch campaign website. So here's a shout out to her, Christy. Our campaign was extensive. We had the Mind Watch website dedicated just to this project, which was kept very active. Newsletters, social media, tabling, op-eds, canvassing, webinars, informational webinars, petitions, press releases, yard signs, a few fun live events, and we even joined some parades. And we ended up undergoing huge growth with about a 10-fold increase in supporters over the course of the last few years, which was also challenging, I must say. So what were our key strategies? That's what I'm getting to here. Get the information out early and focus on a few key strong points. Strive to keep it out of the political polarizations. Use carefully crafted messaging. Keep it simple. This can be really difficult, in my opinion, sometimes, but it seems to be really important. And emphasize what resonates. For example, talking about wells going dry resonates a lot more than to a broader audience anyway than an endangered species concern. Striving for accuracy is important. It needs to be, everything you publish needs to be defendable. Developers will jump at a chance to challenge your credibility, and avoid hyperbole in official publications. We try to distinguish between official publications and op-eds and personal rants, which are fine. You know, people are allowed to have emotional responses, but we don't want to basically give the developers too much to attack us with. And provide lots of ways for people to engage with petitions, letter campaigns, and so forth. And last but not least is social media has really become a huge factor. And I'm seeing that you have to be really agile and keep up with it because it just keeps changing. So that's about it. Hope that helps. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ralph. And there were numerous points that I'm sure folks were curious to follow up on. You know, what does it mean to craft a message that resonates, and how do you sort of you know, avoid talking about you know, sensitive political issues without or while staying sort of true to your message and your organizational principles. And that is stuff that we'll try to touch on in just a little bit. But I want to turn it over to Sandra to talk to us a little bit about her work.
Thank you, everybody. Can people hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it says for me to unmute my microphone. So okay, I'm going to hit unmute because it's in front of the. So hi, I should have said Tuolumne does land conservation and stewardship. That is our mission. We do some educational stuff, we do advocacy, and we do on the ground work. The campaign I want to talk about today was the campaign to expand Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument and to add Malak Loyuk to the monument. So we started this campaign about 2005. There had been a concerted effort by many groups in the area. It's a wide coalition. I'll talk more about that, to protect Moloch-Loic because it's an extremely ecologically and culturally sensitive area. We went through numerous iterations, national conservation areas. We finally got to the point in 2015 where President Obama established Berryessa Snow Mountain National Monument. And the problem at that point was they didn't add Moloch-Loic in because we had significant opposition from Colusa County. So looking forward, the urge to protect Moloch-Loic had not changed. We tried to do it in the monument to conservation area, an area of critical environmental concern. We tried those designations and we weren't successful in doing that. We've been working with our legislators on this, our local, our Congress people, our senators, our local and state representatives were all part of this. And we were lucky enough, about 3 years ago, Representative Garamendi introduced a discussion draft, and it sort of took off from there. We have a unique coalition. A lot of the coalitions that work on things and have organizing agreements where they have agreements as to how they're going to work together and how decisions are made. Our coalition didn't have that. We worked just in concert. We'd hash things out. We disagreed sometime, but we always worked things out. So we also had another unique aspect to it is that we had tribal leadership. We had the Yochadihi Winton Nation. Moloch-Loic is Patwin Heartland. It's part of their origin story, so they were part of it. So we had this coalition. We had the tribal interests. We had conservationists. We had OHV members. We all came together, and when you start out on a coalition, you do some brass tacks. We did a campaign plan. We looked at goals. We looked at the lay of the land. Like, we analyzed what's the situation, what are our threats, what are our positive aspects, what were our objectives, what did we want to get out of this? And it was more than just adding Moloch-Loic to the monument. We wanted the community, we wanted our legislators to also feel the same draw and commitment to the special place that we had, right? We wanted to build something that didn't end when the monument was expanded, but that continued on. So we did campaign timelines. We looked at roles and responsibilities. Who was going to do what? When were they going to do it? And that means, like, who did media? So Tuolumne is a small nonprofit. We work with larger ones like California Native Plant Society. I know Mike Painter with California for Western Wilderness is on, and other folks. But we didn't have media capacity. So we worked with funders. We got a media firm to work with us that funders funded. So we looked at sort of, one of the first things we did when we did this campaign plan is, what do we have? What types of expertise do we have? What's missing? Who's at the table? Who should be at the table? And we threw our net wide. We brought everybody in. We brought farmers, we brought off-highway vehicles, we had equestrians, we had conservationists, we had scientists, we had botanists, we had local, state, federal representatives. We had bi-weekly meetings, and I want to be mindful of time for Q&A. We had bi-weekly meetings where we went through all this stuff and we worked together. Some of the key things I think are really important. Ralph talked about some of them. It was a grassroots campaign. One of the things that we found was really important was respect for others, and that includes respect for those who disagree with you, respect for other opinions in the coalition, and respect for other people's expertise. So we did a report on why this area was important, and there's geology, there's botany, there's all these other aspects, and really knowing, like, I'm not a geologist, right? So I wasn't the person to be making those decisions and be writing text on that and say what was important. So we were really careful to make sure that we respected everybody's expertise, and we brought in the people we need. We did a campaign budget, right, to figure out what did we need to do this for all the organizations to make that happen. Ralph talked about like sort of knowing who you're talking to, knowing your audience, knowing what people are interested in. It's not spinning. What it is speaking to what people care to. So we had a lot of opposition in Colusa County. We went and sat down with Colusa County. But we picked who went and sat down with Colusa County because there are some hot button issues in Colusa County that certain folks are working on that, for instance, Tuolumne has not been part of. Because what we wanted to make sure is we were keeping our conversations focused on Moloch Loyak, on what we wanted to promote and what our priorities were. We did all sorts of things. We did media, we did social media. We have a web page, Expand Berryessa. So we did a web page. We did letter writing campaigns. We did a petition campaign. We had over 186,000 people that ended up in support of this. It's 14,000 acres. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it was critical because of its importance, wildlife connectivity, a variety of other aspects. We did social media, and I'm not a social media maven, but we expanded our social media output. We did wildflower tours. It's an amazing place for wildflowers. We did dozens of wildflower tours. We took elected officials, members of the public, funders. We took the media out. And so we did all that. And then I really want to emphasize something Ralph said is accuracy. Never BS'd anybody. If we didn't know an answer to something, we told them we didn't know the answer. If the answer wasn't one we wanted to give, we gave it anyway if it was the truth. So mindful of time, because I think we're running a little late. I think key strategies are like some good planning at the beginning, really appreciating who's in your coalition, playing to people's strengths, bringing in the expertise you need from other places, an openness to listening and engaging with the full coalition, those people who oppose you. Accuracy is so important in all of this. You know, and I think one of the other things, and we'll talk more probably about Congress and legislators and stuff, we worked really closely with the administration and with our congressional champions. We had issues in Colusa. We didn't place our problems at the administration's feet. We took care of our problems. We dealt with Colusa. We got 2 out of 5 county supervisors to vote in favor of us. I call it a victorious defeat. We know of no time since the 1980s that anybody on the Colusa County Board of Supervisors has voted in favor of adding federal public lands anywhere. So I think it's really important that when you're looking at this stuff, don't be myopic in who you're working with. Really expand, talk to the opposition. So there's so much more I can say, but I'm going to move on because Gustavo has much to offer also.
Yeah, we'll circle back, Sandra. Thank you, and I love the concept of a victorious defeat. I can't wait to hear a little bit about that. And it seems like some folks, at least in the chat, are interested in the specifics around your coalition building. So we'll touch on that a little bit more as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Gustavo to tell us a little bit about his work.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, my organization, we work in a lot of different campaigns from climate change, oil extractions, pesticides, just transition, a lot of different projects and campaigns that we have. But the one that I want to share today is the advocacy that we do on budget at the county level. We live here in Kern County, and we are being engaged in the budget approval process for the last about 14 years. And during this time, I think we were being able to leverage about more or less like $200 million for community investments, which include improving streets, sidewalks, parks, flooding issues, neighborhoods or streets that don't have even electricity or sewer system. So that's in general, what we've been doing, and how we do it is, we organize the communities, and here, in the Valley, most of the communities, especially for this advocacy that we are doing, is working with rural communities or rural neighborhoods. The way we do it, we meet with the communities, we identify the needs of the communities, we document the needs, that each community have. And we do it collectively, you know, from all the communities that my organization work with. We do it collectively. So we go as a group because the main idea is creating the collective power and the community voice. And, you know, just I'm an organizer, so you are going to hear, you know, the organizing aspects of, you know, bringing people together. And just to mention, you know, when you bring people together, you know, and there are different ways of doing that and different purposes. But for us, when almost most of the time that we have been doing it, we started doing it with one of the county supervisors that was supposed to be a little more friendly, and then the districts were changed, and one county supervisor started representing most of the community, rural communities that we work with, and that supervisor, he was the city of Bakersfield consul, and he proposed English only, denying benefits to people with documents and so on, you know, very, very anti, you know, immigrant. And we were very concerned, you know, how we are going to deal with this person. And actually, you know, after years of, you know, the community showing the collective power, he's been doing, I will say, very, very good work, you know, as I mentioned, you know. At the beginning, when we started trying to set meetings with supervisors, it took us like 3-4 months to set up a meeting. Right now, we just go and ask for the meeting. 1 or 2 weeks, we have the meetings almost immediately. So, and that's, you know, developing the relationship that we have right now. I think that's what it lets us, you know, all the efforts that we were doing from the beginning is where we are right now, you know, that having the county doing so much community investments, you know, and, you know, we bring people together, as I mentioned, and then we learn, you know, what's the process, you know, of the planning, the budget approval, you know, when it starts, you know, what are the key times that we need to talk to the decision makers, who are the key people, are the, you know, the supervisors, the CEOs, the different departments, you know, Department of Public Health, Public Works, you know, different, you know, public parks and all of that, you know, identifying, you know, who are the key players and meeting with them. And I think we learned that, you know, not only meeting with the supervisors, not only attending the public meetings, but doing the work before, you know, meeting with supervisors, in this case, you know, in advance, you know, with our list of priorities that each community have in an organized way, you know, saying this is what we need. So meeting with those key people, you know, but also at the same time is one is what can we push for to the supervisors to allocate funding in their regular budget, you know, the normal budget that they have, but that's one piece, pushing them to allocate as much as possible. But the other piece is, if they don't have the funding, which, you know, is always the case, you know, there is more need than funding available, is working with the county in identifying, you know, grants and other kind of funding, which is, in my opinion, I think we are being able to secure more funding from those kind of sources than, you know, the regular income that the county have for this kind of project. So it's just following up. So it's not only appearing each year with these decision makers, but it's, you know, having regular meetings with them, you know, following up. And once after we identify and secure funding, you know, we continue, you know, talking to the county, talking to the department that is in charge of that, to ensure that they are going to actually implement the projects, you know, develop the projects, because the fact that they secure the funding is not 100% secure if we don't keep, you know, watching that. So there is a set of projects that already have funding that we continue meeting and asking them for updates and all of that. And also, you know, there are some, like in this last time after the process passed, we set up a meeting with the county CEO to help us clearly understand all the allocations in terms of all the projects that our communities were advocating for. So we had a meeting. The person was very clear with us and also, share with us where to find the documents, where to find all that information. And also, gave us very good information telling us, you need to start they approve it, normally approve it in August, but she said, start in January talking to us because, we need to know what are the community needs. So we start thinking about that. And the earlier you come to talk to us with the community priorities, the more chance you will have, for us to consider those kind of community needs. So I think in general, that's kind of the process, but it's as I mentioned, where we are right now is the result of years and years, advocating, and developing that relationship with the decision makers.
Thanks, Ralph. And you actually took us right to our next question, which I think is perfect. So my next question here is, what are some common challenges you faced when trying to convince decision makers to listen to your cause, and how do you overcome them? What approaches have worked best for fostering these relationships? And if you're a visual learner, I am just going to post these in the chat as well. But I'm going to ask Ralph to lead us off with the start on this question. And then I'm going to turn it over to Gustavo and then Sandra.
Yes. So I think one of the common challenges is getting your message out there early, because it seems like first impressions are really critical. It's important to meet with decision makers. From my experience, much of the official opinion is shaped in advance of any meetings where the decisions are made. Not entirely, but much of it is shaped at that time. And for instance, in this recent project with the mine, the project had tens of thousands of pages, and the decision makers often can't spend the many hours it takes to really understand a project. And so it's really hard to get them to go against anything that isn't in a staff report or summarized by their staff for the hearings. And if you go to a hearing, like a big hearing, and there's a lot of people, the commissioners or the elected officials, they get saturated after, you've had 20 or 30 people speaking. So what I'm trying to say is it's hard to change course later on. And so it's good to get in early if you can and start to raise your concerns in time for people to have time to digest them and to consider them. We had a real problem with that on this project because the mine owner threatened lawsuits for conspiracy and pre-bias because they said everybody was negotiating behind the scenes. This happened after the draft EIR was turned down or not certified by the Planning Commission, and so there was this big scare tactic that kind of worked. Everybody's afraid to meet with us. And so we ended up basically having to find other pathways to get the information we had to the, in this case, the Board of Supervisors. And that involved having multiple small presentations during the regular public comment periods, virtually every hearing, every session that came up over time. Anyway, that's what I have to offer.
Thanks, Ralph. And I seem to remember you saying something about when we chatted previously that what really worked was like meeting individually with board supervisors and making sure to go to public comment sessions to educate decision makers. There was some method behind the madness. Maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so we were able to meet with the decision makers, say, one time. And so that was pretty restrictive. But what we did is we just took key points and we just had people go to the regular meetings. Every 2 weeks, there's a regular meeting and there's a general public comment period. And so we would just provide a well-documented presentation in 3-minute chunks to them over time. And so over the course of several months, we basically covered a lot of really important points that normally you'd have a hard time covering and explaining them in an understandable way in any other format. So that worked good. I just say baby bites of important information over time. Worked pretty well.
So your relationship with them was developed by sort of, spoon feeding. You spoon fed your way into a relationship, I see.
Yes, in this case. I don't think that is normally the case, but I gotta say, it's just basically if you can talk to them and say, well, what works for you? How would you like this information brought to you? We have all these concerns and we're trying to meet, and so it helps if you can get some feedback and see what people appreciate and what they don't. I know at some points they were having their meetings flooded with protesters on certain subjects, and it would basically tie up the meeting for hours, during the general public comment period, so they couldn't get to their agenda, and they had to start managing that. So you don't want to get people irritated. You want to basically help them do their job in the most positive way you can.
Thanks, Ralph. I'm going to turn it over, Tavo. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I think as I mentioned, especially with the key supervisor that we are currently dealing, as that he was not more friendly with immigrants. I think one of the key things for us is that we do it in a respectful way with people, and it's not it's respectful but strong position. We can be respectful and can be strong at the same time. I think from coming from weak position it doesn't help, but be respectful, and I think that's been working for us because not to critique others, but sometimes others go and say, an example, defund the police, and some supervisors say, no, we need police, and it's true, we need police, but here, in Kern County, they use like 65% or so of their general fund budget for safety, mainly for police. So, and I think part of us is educating them, community safety not only comes in forms of police, it comes in forms of, well-maintained parks, well streets, public lights and everything. So that's part of, educating them. But that's one of the approaches, it's there is more than one way of, dealing with community needs. And as I said, showing them that, yes, we are very strong in what we need, but at the same time, you can have conversations with us. Last meeting we had with the supervisor, we had about 20 people from different communities, and it was very organized. We have the person that do the most of the talking, which actually that person is here. Diana Mireles is a great organizer, so she was leading the meeting, and just having designated people, to present, the topics, and the community, both to expand a little bit on if needed, with comments, but the community being there saying, we are here, we are a one voice, a united voice. So even if I don't speak, I'm here and I'm your constituency. So I think that's and we're being told. Last meeting we had, a month or so ago, the county CEO, she said, we really like to meeting with you because, we are not, that concerned of meeting with you, because sometimes we meet with groups that, the first thing they say, I'm paying your salary, which is right, but that's not the way to start a meeting, But yeah, I think those are some of the things, just showing the community power and trying to understand also, what's realistic, yes, the list of communities always be big and continue being, but at the same time, what's realistic that we can do this year, understanding, that things may come with time, but just pushing them, challenging them to do more than normal, but something realistic. I think that's also good. And telling them, the other piece that we always tell them, we have this list of needs. What can we do as community to make it happen? So I think that's another part that is also being very effective because we provide letters of support to all departments at the county level, so they can secure the funding. We also go when the funding source, foundations, or other agencies come and do site visits for the projects. We participate in those site visits and explaining to the funders why these needs are very, very important for communities. So I think that's the other part, being willing to be part of the solution.
Thanks, Gustavo. I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Sandy.
So we face two different types of challenges with elected officials. One is, so ours was a federal campaign. We had legislation introduced, but due to the nature of Republicans in the House and the Senate, it was pretty apparent that we were not going to get legislation passed. So then we pivoted to getting President Biden to sign a monument proclamation, which he did on May 2nd. It was amazing. The Oval Office is smaller than you think it is. Talk about that later. Really much smaller. But so we had to do a couple things. So at the federal level, the challenge is, I used to work in DC, I should say, for Senator Boxer and Senator Reed. There are 100 different people standing at the doors of the staff, because that's where you're going to start with, and they're working on hundreds of issues. So really respecting that, being really concise when you give them materials, being responsive, being accurate. So I never go into a Hill office with more than a 2-pager and a couple maps. And don't, because I'll be really honest, they don't have the time to read 30 pages. What they're going to do is you want to give them what you want them to see. Don't give them 30 pages to pick out what they get to pick out. Give what you want them to see, pique their interest, have the other information, tell them there's more information. We don't want to overwhelm you. Here's what we're giving you. Make sure, whether it's an email or a phone call or an in-person, all of which we did, that you're really concise. Be responsive when they ask you a question, respond in a timely manner. If you can't, let them know that you can't, why you're not responding, so they don't feel like you're blowing it off. Being accurate, don't ever misrepresent to somebody on the Hill. If you don't know, just say, I don't know, I'll get back to you. I'm going to go back. There's 100 other people standing there. If they can't trust you, they're not going to go back to you. They're going to find somebody else because they don't have the time to work with somebody who either gives them bad information or spins. Don't ever spin with Hill staff. Give them the accurate information. And I'm going to say something both Ralph and Gustavo said, never attack. Don't ever attack them. And I've been on the receiving end of it. And I got to tell you, it doesn't do anybody any good. And I've watched other people do it. And I get back to the thing, there's 100 other people. I worked in Harry Reid's office, and I won't get into the issue of the person. There was an NRDC staff person in 3 meetings, public meetings with multiple groups, used to yell in my face, and he was being inaccurate. He didn't come back into the office for 2 to 3 months. I had other people I could talk to, right? They have other people they can talk to. If you are the only person out there, that's great. Build that relationship, right? Respect the fact that they're working for somebody and they're trying to do their best. And, there's good or bad staff, good or bad of everything, right? The other thing is to make this happen, we started just focusing on Lake County, but there was land in Colusa County. Colusa County is very, very conservative. So we had local opposition, we had ideological opposition, and we had so much bad information and misinformation. It got to be whack-a-mole, right? I mean, every time we defeated something, they came up with something else. So we did what I call pre-buttal. we gathered all the stuff so that when we went out to people, we did on the ground canvassing. We knocked on doors in Colusa County, Lake County. We went door to door. We knocked at businesses. We went to chambers of commerces. We went to city councils. We went to board of supervisors. We tried to address the misinformation out there before they got it, right? So we wanted to make clear what was going on. I think that was really, really important for us. And it actually had a really great benefit in the California Senate. Senator Dodd, McGuire, and Assemblymember Aguirre Curry introduced a resolution in support of adding Moloch Loyak to the monument. And my staff person was told by, and this, talk to the opposition, you guys. Other people were saying, only talk to the supporters. Don't worry about the Republicans that are going to oppose you. And I told her, I go, I don't care what anybody else is telling you. You go into every single Republican office and you have a conversation. She went into the first Republican office and found out that there was significant misinformation going around as to what was happening in this. She informed that office of the facts, had the facts on her and could document it, went into every other office. That resolution passed unanimously. We got every single Republican because we gave accurate information. We met with the opposition. We didn't argue with them. We just gave them facts. So I think those were, you know, part of it's a lack of resources, right? For both of them, for both at the county, the local level and at the federal level. So it kind of is, it is our responsibility to give them the resources they need in the forms that they need them. I think those were our biggest issues. I will say, I want to go back to thinking about who you're taking to a meeting. So there was one board of supervisor he's vehemently opposed ideologically, which is interesting because he used to work for the U.S. Forest Service, right? But he hates federal public lands. So we, when we went to meet with him, there's an issue, and you guys, probably a lot of people have heard of Sites Reservoir in California. And I know the vast majority of the environmental community opposes it. Tuolumne has not taken a position on it for a couple reasons. We haven't felt the need to. I don't know that we're value added. We work a lot in Colusa County, and we've just had mixed feelings on what is or isn't appropriate to do with the water in that issue. When we met with that one supervisor, we didn't take people who were opposed to Sites Reservoir because we knew what would happen is the whole conversation would get veered off into sites. And I will say we had a 2-hour meeting, despite the fact there was nobody in that coalition that was working on sites. We spent 45 minutes of that meeting talking about Sites Reservoir. So be really strategic when you're thinking, who's going into the meeting? Who am I meeting with? And who has to be there? So we went out to DC. We were very strategic. We took, there's biological resources, cultural resources, right? The tribe went there. We had a representative from California Native Plant Society. We've got like 40 rare and endemic plants. So we really, when we went to different meetings, we thought about who we were taking to the meetings. So that was really critical to building the support we needed. Like I said, we got 2 Colusa County Board of Supervisors. We got a Colusa City Council member, not her she personally supported, the city council did. We got numerous businesses throughout Colusa. We had to get Colusa to get the proclamation. So we, like I said, victorious defeat. We did our on the ground work with Colusa to build the support we needed, which ended up building the support we also needed at the federal level. It made our, you have to have your congressional Senate champions behind you, especially if you're from California, right? They're Democrats, Biden's a Democrat. If you're from Utah, I don't know that Biden needs the Republican Utah senators to agree with you, but we had to take these steps at the local level to do what we needed at the federal level to get the focus we needed to get our legislators to go to the president. And it happened. So we were clearly successful. So those were the types of challenges, like resources, focusing, and then really, I always use the word pre-buttal. Know what your opposition is going to say. We had a meeting with Secretary Holland, and she was asking me some questions. And I felt so like, it was one of those moments you're like, this is what you want in a campaign. She's like, well, why does Colusa oppose it? So I told her, I go, it's become whack-a-mole. I gave some of the craziest things they said, and then I gave one that applied to her. Every public lands bill has a clause that says if there is a minor error in the map, the secretary can adjust it. It's worded a little different. That just means if there's a minor area. The folks in Colusa County had convinced 2 of the Board of Supervisors, we probably would have got 4 out of the 5, that meant that the Secretary of Interior could, at any time she wanted, add any private or public land to that national monument at her own whim, right? I got the opportunity to tell the secretary that in person, and you could see sort of the look on her face that, you know, the knowing what they were going to say to her in 2 weeks undercut them before they walked in the door. We had a community meeting. I wasn't in the county meeting, but the reports I have gotten back is they did exactly what we thought they'd do. They walked in and said all the stuff we'd already pre-butted for them, most of which we didn't need to do because the agency knows. But I think all those things were key, right? Making sure the facts, be concise, think of what you're giving people, think of who's in the room, really building the support at the local level that the local folks needed, and then taking that support and translating it all the way through the federal level through the president.
Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, thanks for giving us some cool concepts to mull over, like pre-buttal and so forth. And yeah, what a clear case of, like, you know, strategically losing the battle to win the war, right? Like that. I really appreciate that story and what it brought to the conversation. So thank you. So we're gonna move on to another question. This one is specifically about coalition building. What role does coalition building play in advocacy, and how do you form and maintain effective partnerships with other organizations or groups that are inclusive and representative of diverse communities? Post this in the chat for folks to look at here. But let's go ahead and Sandy, while you're on a roll, I'm going to turn it back over to you to lead us off for this question.
Okay, I think I said a little bit this before. I think coalitions and grassroots organizing are key in all the work that we do. We have to make sure that the work we're doing is reflective by the communities in which we work, right? We have to make sure that we're listening to those communities, we're working with them, we're reflecting their needs and interests. So, you know, I talked a little bit about it. We had a core group that we've been working with for a while, because we've been working on this in different iterations since 2005 and then through the monument. So the core group sort of got together, right, and started on the campaign plan. But as part of that, we figured out that we were missing folks. And we did a lot of outreach, and we hugely expanded our coalition. One of the things that we did do, we have a lot of tribes in the area, and we have a large Hispanic population. And we made a point of reaching out to their representatives and their communities and bringing them in as leaders in the coalition and as leaders in our coalition, and making sure that we were on the right track and we were reflecting what they wanted. And as part of that, what we had to do was also recognize that different groups and individuals have different resource limitations, and trying to make sure that as we're asking people to participate with us, we're making sure we're doing it in a way that they're able to participate with us, right? Knowing that, you know, a large group is going to have different resources than a small group. The Yochadihi Winton Nation happens to be a very savvy tribal nation. Over the last 20 years, they've changed. They have resources. A lot of the tribes we worked with didn't. A lot of the Colusa County, a lot of the business owners that we went to, there were a lot of Hispanic business owners that we reached out to. They can't come to public meetings, right? They have to work all day. They're running their businesses. So asking ourselves, what is a way for us to let them participate meaningfully and reflect what they wanted? So we took their input, we built it into things. This isn't the end of our process. There's 3 stages to protecting land. You get the protected status. We're now working on a land management plan, which that also will require us to do all the grassroots organizing we've done again, and to make sure that those business owners, what they need out of recreation and a monument is done. Then of course you got to get on the ground and do the stewardship. So that is one of the things. And then, you know, how do you form and maintain it? Like I said, we didn't, somebody said they'd like to see an organizing agreement for a coalition. I've never seen one. We had a lot of pressure to do one, but I always say if it's not broke, don't fix it. So we didn't have an organizing agreement, but we were inclusive. We welcomed everybody in who wanted to be in. We were honest and genuine to people. We really listened to what folks were saying to us. We went to people. We didn't require them to go to us. We reached out to, I think it was 8 tribes in the area, and we went to meet them. We took them on the land. We didn't say, hey, we're Tuolumne and Woodland, come talk to us. We went to the business owners in Lake County and Colusa County, went to the chambers of commerce. And then we kept them informed, even if they weren't always actively involved. So that was really key, right? There are people that are interested, but they can't go to every meeting. So we made sure that we kept folks informed and reached out and reached back. You know, we talked about grassroots and grass tops. We tried to make sure we were going both ways. And we have a really good coalition. So we are in the monument management planning stage, and some folks have fallen off, right? Monument management planning isn't as sexy as like getting a monument established, but we still have a really good core group that's working forward and going to look at, okay, what's the next stage in this amazing area? And what do we need to do as a coalition to make that happen? And you know what? We still need to expand our coalition. There are some people that weren't at the table as much as we wanted that need to be at the table more. So I think those are some of the things that I think is really, really important when we're working on these types of things. That one other thing is we shared resources. So we had funders that were really helpful. I will thank Rose Foundation. They were key to some of our efforts, but I raised funds to give to other groups to go out to DC, right? So we were raising funds that we could share with other members of the coalition to make it possible for all of us to do what we needed to do and be a strong coalition. I know I'm missing something key. I can feel it in the back of my head, but.
That was great, Sandy. Thank you so much. And Sandy, if you do remember it, feel free to chime in or speak up or circle back to it. But for now, let's move on to Ralph. Ralph, can you talk to us a little bit about your coalition building and how you can make it as representative as possible?
Yeah, thanks. I think Sandra did cover a lot of really important points. And our situation might be a little bit different because we respond to different development projects in our community. And so there's going to be a different mix and match of people or groups that are, our allies or not. So we've been trying to figure out a way to make some sort of standing coalition or have some sort of organizational agreement. And like Sandra, we've decided that it probably isn't going to work because everything keeps changing. And so we're just we work on a basis of, well, for this project, we think, oh, this is in the watershed of Wolf Creek. So the watershed group, Wolf Creek Community Alliance will want to be involved. The Audubon people want to be involved, and the Nisenan people, would certainly have a voice there. And so there's all these selection of subgroups or different coalitions that we form, on a per project basis is the way I see it going forward. For the mine, it was remarkable because we had a huge coalition. We had over 20 groups formed, and we ended up with some comment letters that we sent to the county that included, it was very impressive to have the logos of all these groups at the top saying it in the end. It was obvious that we with a very powerful voice. So it's still something that we're trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm open to ideas actually, because definitely there's a lot of benefit to working with coalitions. You get a broad support base, you get great ideas, you get expertise. It's definitely a big plus.
Thanks, Ralph. And last but not least, I'm going to
Sure.
turn it over to Gustavo.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Yeah, I think as I mentioned, for us, specifically for this campaign advocating for the budget, members of our coalition are the communities, different communities, and some of these communities already have their own local, either local committees that we organize so they can represent their own community, or some of them also already became also, nonprofits also, we are doing with that, but also other coalition members that are important, sometimes we also join forces with unions. For example, SEIU, they are renegotiating their contract with the county. And sometimes we are asked, why you are joining with the union that you will be competing for funding? Well, we're not competing for funding. I think our mission is to improve our community, and the social services in the community are very important also. And having, well-paid employees, they will provide better quality service to our community. So we are aligned with trying to improve our communities. But that's those are kind of the coalitions we create. We also, there are some organizations that they provide what is I call technical support, that they are the experts on, understanding budgets and everything, and training us in the community, what are the different pieces of budget, and, what are the areas that we may push the county that may not be as important for the community as the issues that we are bringing, all of those kind of coalitions, it's different organizations that we are working with different communities, just bringing ourselves together, it's like, organizations like CRPE that are working with different communities, bringing our base, bringing, the experts. I think that's because I think, as Sandra mentioned, when we go to the meetings and we know what we are talking about, they pay more attention when we are prepared.
Thanks, Tavo. So I'm gonna pause here for a moment because we have a couple of good questions built up. So I'm gonna pause our panel discussion here, and we have maybe one or two other questions we might return to if time allows. But I want to address some of the questions we've got in the chat and others. If you have questions at this point that you've been mulling over that you really want to get in front of our group of esteemed panelists here, please feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll get to them if we can. But directly pertaining to this question, Cesar asks, how do you balance community needs with organizational priorities? So how do you balance community needs with organizational priorities? And Cesar, I don't know if you want to expand on that question a little bit. Feel free to come off mute and do so if you want to. But
yeah, for sure. Sometimes when we go into a community, especially one that has like a looming project coming or like a specifically bad polluter, and we meet with the community and ask them what their biggest problems are, we may come in focused with trying to make the air better, but they may want drinkable water, right? Something that they haven't had. So how do folks here balance coming into a community that they either haven't worked in or have worked in for a long time, and when a certain need comes up that isn't part of their work plans or their organizational priorities, how do they work with communities to help deal with those issues, to be a good partner?
thanks, Cesar. Yeah, any panelists who want to tackle that very easy question?
Try. Yeah, I think, and there is for especially I think for us, I will say for us, the experience is being that when we go and work with the community, definitely we are going to hear more issues that our organization can handle always. And I think the approach to that will be for us is, pay attention to those issues, learn, listen to the community, what are those issues? And if those are issues that my organization, your organization is not working on, is not focusing on. If your organization have the capacity to expand, to work in those issues that you are not working currently, you can do that. But if you don't have the capacity to expand, to support the community in those issues that you are not, your organization is not focusing, is connecting them to other organizations that are focusing on those kind of issues. Most of the time, there are other organizations that work on those specific issues, and I think connecting the community to those other organizations, I think that's one way of supporting the community.
That's an interesting thought, Gustavo. I feel like, yeah, I think helping people not to feel like they just are running into a brick wall or like a completely closed door is a great way to go about that. Like you are saying, oh yeah, I'm going to use my connections and I know somebody that works on exactly that issue you're talking about. And while I can't do much about it, let's find you a community that you can, shine in. I think that's a great approach. I love that answer. Thank you. Others want to jump in on this one?
The one thing I would say is that I think it gets more complicated depending on what you're doing, but I think it's really important if you're doing grassroots organizing and it's somebody comes to you about something within your mission. If I'm grassroots organizing within Colusa County or Lake County, and the community members don't support what we're doing, I'm not grassroots organizing, right? I'm imposing things on people. So I think it's really important for us, and I know all of you guys out there, we really try to make sure that we're trying to keep touch with the communities. And there's times we're better and worse at it, but really trying to make sure we're keeping touch with communities. And we'll do like our own public meetings sometimes. So BLM was working on trails and travel management. What do you do for trails? What kind of trails, whether it's hiking or biking or off-highway vehicle and roads in the monument. And they had this very elaborate process that you had to go, I'm not a tech person. You had to go onto a GIS program. You had to know where the location was, pin it, and then add your information in, right? I'm never going to do it. So we actually, Tuolumne held a public meeting for the community, and we had a person who was good at it. So people told us where to pin it and what to write in. So we tried to figure out a way to make those voices heard in a situation where I don't think they were going to be heard on their own just because of some of the technical stuff. But I think that applies to other circumstances also.
Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, not all of us are GIS proficient, myself included, so I get that. Okay, so I'm going to, Francis, you had a question about, so listening to the community, transparency is so important. Oh, sorry, not Francis. Veronica, that's what I meant. So many times as advocates, we are told we are the only at the meetings because we are being paid, or we are coaching community members. How do you overcome this situation? So our panelists, do we have strong feelings about this one?
May I? I love that question. From my time with, I was 25 years also involved with the General Farm Workers Union, and I started as organizer there. And that was one of the questions that I was asked when talking to farm workers at that time, being told, you are here because you are being paid. And, yes, I've been paid. And normally, yes, I've been paid, that I'm okay. Are you coaching the community? Yes, I'm coaching the community. I'm helping them, with what the process is. But I think recognizing that, not denying that. Yes, I've been paid to do that. Yes, I'm organizing the community, but that's not the point. The point is, what is the issue that is bringing us here? Focus on the issue, not don't talk about me. It's not about me. It's about the issue that we are bringing to you or your office. So always focus on on the issue and just change their focus of trying to deviate your conversation of focusing on people, but you're just focusing on the issue and say, yes, yeah, I've been paid and I'm okay. But that's not your role, What's the issue that you need to respond to the community?
I think so. Sandy.
I'm going to agree with Gustavo. I think it's the kind I smile because we all need jobs. I mean, I'm not independently wealthy. So I'm an attorney. I chose to do public service. I've worked for government and nonprofits. I didn't go out and make millions in the corporate world. So to me, when somebody's asking you that question, there's somebody who doesn't want to address the issue. I think Gustavo's right. They're trying to misdirect the issue and change the conversation onto something's not relevant. So I've had people say that to me, and I'm like, well, yeah, I have to eat too. So, but I've chose to work in public service. I kind of respond to it that way. And frequently I'll say, just like you, because you might be meeting. I had this happen when I was meeting with a member of Mr. Barrasso's staff one time, said something like that to me. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I chose public service like you. You're doing public service. We all have to put food on our plates, and right, we need a place to live and a roof over our head. So I think that's really an attempt of misdirection of the people asking it.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Savo. Yeah. Good reminder also to, pay those pay your dentists and doctors, they we gotta pay people that are doing a good service. Yeah, agreed. That's does seem sometimes like an attempt at misdirection or a profound misunderstanding. Either way, I think Sandy and Tavo, you're both right. I have another question from Francis. So, have you had an issue where you are distributing limited resources and don't have enough for everyone? And they start saying that you have favoritism or that you redirect funds. How do you deal with that kind of thing? And Francis, I don't know if this is if you have more to this question that you want to expand on, feel free to come off mute and tell us that if so.
Yeah, it's mainly when funds are passed through an organization, like I work in an organization, and yes, I do get paid for my job. But other organizations or even the city will pass funds through our organizations because we are a grassroots organization. So we deal with many leaders, we train leaders, and as we are distributing, if some people don't get it, then this is the people that are saying that we steal or that we have favoritism or that there's all of these negative things. And I take it very personal in my personal because it hurts me because I do a lot of advocacy, like city council, I go to Senate, I go to Congress, I go to, wherever I need to go so I could advocate for many of the things that we are fighting for, just for the basic needs mainly, and equitable resources, equitable funding, equitable everything. And then I feel so hurt when something like this happens because my kids stay, alone because I'm out there. I'm not at home. I sleep late. I get up early. So I could be doing all of these things. And then you get hit by all of this. So I don't know if that has happened, but I honestly don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, thanks, Francis. And might I add, you sound underpaid and overworked. So I
Yes.
see you. I see you. Sandy, Ralph, Pavel, do any of you want to respond to this?
So we didn't, at least, I think I have a coalition member or two that worked with us on this. At least as far as I know, we did some pass through. We didn't get that type of feedback. I will say a lot of what we did though is we look at so you prepare a report on why a monument or an area should be added to a monument. We raised the funds for that, but the whole coalition worked on it. So we hired the editor, but everybody helped draft it. So I didn't experience it in that arena. I have experienced it. I was a former appointee for Jerry Brown at the Department of Food and Ag. I was the #2 person, and I experienced it there. So I think I've probably become a little inured to it. You know, resources are limited. So as a nonprofit, Tuolumne never has enough resources to do everything we want to do. We are constantly pulling from our general fund. So I have, when people say stuff to us, like they think we have more money than we do. And I'm like, oh, no, we don't. You know, I'm taking money from my general fund to do this, right? So I'm robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So sometimes explaining the sort of the nature of like what nonprofits are, especially smaller nonprofits, and how really you're living on a razor line most of the time, right? Because our dreams are so much bigger than our capacities, and we're always trying to build towards our dreams. And the other thing I've said to people is like, you know, limited resources, we're doing our best, right? If our process isn't working and you think we can improve the process of picking our priorities, please help us figure out how we can improve that process. But I'm never going to have enough money to fund everybody that we want to fund. So we have to, in some way, try to find priorities. And the other thing I will say is, I'm sorry that people resent you for not being able to do everything that you want to do and not being able to sort of fulfill all needs, because that feels it feels actually quite unfair when you're trying to like do as much as you can to have people coming at you in that way. So I'm sorry, I can hear the hurt in your voice, and it pains me to hear that.
100% agree, Sandy. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and if I may, Francis, so I have over 40 years of doing this, and I've been in those situations many times. But I think for me, one way of doing it, Francis, is let me use my organizer hat. I always focus on my mission, and I think Sandra said it in a different way. You know, our dreams. You know, what are our dreams? What we want to achieve? Are our dreams and missions bigger and more important than the critiques of people? You know, yes, we need to be. The integrity needs to be there. But if we are doing the right thing, and I think the way I used to handle that is my mission is bigger than that. You know, I want clean air, I want justice for my communities, you know, any issue that you are advocating for is bigger than any critique that you can get from people. So don't focus on that, but focus on what you want to achieve. I think that's one way that is working for me, that the mission, my purpose is bigger than any critiques. And we are going to get critiqued, all of us are get critiqued, but I think focusing on our mission, that's one thing that works for me, because, okay, you make any noise you want to make, but I'm doing the right thing and I love to do this and I'll keep doing it, and sometimes, it may apply or not, but sometimes when distributing, resources, yes, sometimes we have to focus on people, those people that, either have the biggest needs, or people that, giving those resources to those specific groups or people, they are going to multiply our efforts to improve our community. So yes, sometimes we need to be strategic, and not everybody is going to get the first share. Like when we were distributing water during COVID in a community, and we didn't have enough water for the whole community. And what we did, we asked the committee there, we had so much water, bring for each committee member to bring like 50 people, I believe, 50 families, and we use it that way. And people came and said, why I'm not getting water? Get engaged with the committee, because that's how we are doing it. So yeah, you need to earn it somehow, But yeah, focus on your mission and your purpose. And I think don't pay attention to those people, because if they have time to critique you, they are losing their opportunity and time to to help you advance.
Thanks, Gustavo. So before we have time for one more question, and before we do that, or maybe as we're doing that, I just wanted to remind folks that we have a survey, a post-session survey that we'd like you all to complete, or I just posted in the chat a link to the survey, both in English and in Spanish. We really encourage you to complete the survey as it helps us get slowly better and more effective at doing this. So thank you so much in advance for your help. We greatly appreciate that. As you are clicking those links and filling out those surveys, I have sort of a broad question for you, which is, let's see. How do you identify and actually no, I'm gonna skip past that one. So can you share, panelists, any tips for new advocates who are just starting out? What advice would you give to those looking to create meaningful change in their communities? And jump on in. Maybe we can start with Ralph. Ralph, do you have any thoughts about this one?
Well, yeah, we've done that when we formed Flame Citizens Looking at Impacts of Mining, just try to stop the mine back in 2008. And I think the most important thing is to actually connect with people who have done it before or have experience, because there's lots of people who are out there willing to help. There's a lot of things that seem onerous at first, but they're usually not that bad. It's good to get your organization defined, and it takes a certain amount of work to get that and get a nonprofit status if that seems appropriate, and to try to build a support group right away. So usually you need, I think, a nucleus of people who are working together to accomplish that, a handful of people, and then just there's so many things, and just in this session I've been learning things. So I would say keep your eyes and ears open, and there's lots of good advice out there that would help get you moving. And generally I think other groups or people who are experienced are very happy to help, and if not help you directly, point you in the right direction. That's my immediate thought. I'm sure I could think of more if I had time.
Yeah, and I very quickly just to add, I think for new advocates, I think try to educate yourself as much as possible about the issues and topics that you are dealing with, because community residents see us as their leaders. Even if we believe that we are not leaders, that's how the community see us, as their leaders. And it's, I think for those of us that want to call ourselves advocates for the communities, one of the responsibilities we have is being a couple of steps ahead of residents so we can help them. So get as much as possible, knowledge of about the issues that you are working on.
I agree with all that, but I'll say a couple things. Dream big, but be realistic. Don't get disheartened. Moloch Loyak took us 20 years, but it happened, right? So you can't get disheartened, and be persistent. It's one step at a time, right? Just one step at a time. And, we don't always get what we want, but if we can keep moving forward, we're going in the right direction.
Thanks, y'all. And we have one question from the very beginning. If folks want to stay in contact with you or follow your work in some way, if you have any social media you want to link them to, please do. And panelists, if you are comfortable with it, post your email in the chat so people can stay in contact directly in that way. If you don't have time or space, totally understand, no pressure. But if that is something that you're open to, please make use of the chats, and folks, stick around for a moment so you can get those details. Oh, Sandy posts detail. Oh, great. Sandy Davo. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, thank you everyone for joining us. We are so grateful to our panelists for sharing their stories with us. We are so grateful to all of you all in the audience for being excellent participants, asking difficult questions, difficult but important questions. And yeah, I just wanted to give those shout outs and mention we all are having our final session of our grassroots convenings next week, next Friday at the same time. So if you all are haven't signed up already for that one, please do. And Aurora, can you remind me what the title of that one is?
Oh no, the title. Harnessing the media, crafting effective pitches.
Effective pitches,
Something
that's
like
right.
that.
Yeah, so if you want to get down to brass tacks about crafting a media campaign, yeah, please do show up for our final session next week, next Friday, same time.
And thank Rose Foundation for inviting us. And if nothing else, I learned a lot. So it was great.
Wonderful. All right, thank you all. See you next week.